going on, YouTube people? Welcome back to the channel, Mad Props channel. Welcome back to the Mad Props channel. My name is Jared. For those of you that are new, this channel is dedicated to restoring my boat over here. It's a 1996 Bayliner 2050 40th anniversary edition. Mouthful. This video here, the focus is going to be on a couple odds and ends. So in the last video, if you guys watched it, I showed you some experiments I did with making up my own fairing compound, and in this video I go over actually applying the fairing compound and a couple other odds and ends, including cutting a hole in my floor. It's not as bad as it sounds. So thanks for stopping by and checking out this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that little bell notification thing next to the subscribe button. Basically that just lets you know when I post a new video, because I don't do this as regularly as I'd like to. I'm not doing it once a week or something like that, so you know I post on a certain day. So if you hit that bell, it'll let you know when I post a new video. So yeah, let's get to it. This video I'm going to be laying down the fairing compound and kind of talking about what I learned in the process. This is just as new to me as it is to you, and hopefully by watching me kind of struggle through some things, you guys will learn the right way to do it, not the wrong way to do it. Learn from my mistakes. So let's head over to the boat and start laying down some fairing compound. What's up, guys? Sorry about the fan noise again. Got a bad habit of doing that. Anyway, I got a lot of fairing compound down, but I wanted to give you guys an update here, kind of in the middle of what I'm doing. So in the last video, I think I made the conclusion that I was going to go with the PVA, and that's exactly what I did on the front part of the boat where I started. Let me show you where I'm at now. Kind of working my way back from the front. So, focus. There we go. So, this area up here, the bow seats and the sides is where I started. And I used the PVA, and I don't know what it is, but every time you read the instructions on how to use it, it's like, oh, just wash it off with warm water. It's fine. No problem, just comes right off. It does come off with warm water, but man, what a pain. I probably spent 2 full hours with a bucket of warm water and a Scotch-Brite pad scrubbing to get rid of that stuff, because if you don't and you sand it, it gums up the paper. So that seems kind of a waste of time. So I decided this morning to experiment on my next coat, just go with gel, and that's what I did here on this vertical wall that I'm sitting on, and a little bit up here. That is pretty much set up now. It's pretty hard. I might give it another half hour or so just to make sure. I did it probably 2 hours ago. It feels smooth. I don't know if you can sand right away or not, but I don't know, maybe I'll sand one spot and see how it goes. But since I got rid of that, I'm hoping this wax works better, because I don't feel like wiping off PVA anymore. That was a pain in the butt. So see how this goes. This is the next section I did. You can see it's still wet. I just got done doing it. I mixed this batch up pretty thin because I wanted it to kind of level out on its own, since I didn't do any vertical walls with this batch. Just did this whole bow walk area and around here on the seat base up to this point. I can't do a huge area at once because I got to be able to reach everything without stepping on stuff, and so I kind of just put the coat down, wipe a new section with acetone, put a new coat down. I may not put another coat down until I'm done sanding this one. I'm just going to kind of alternate back and forth, put down a coat, sand while that one's kicking, and see how that works out for me. Again, I'm not trying to make this perfect like the outside of a boat. All I'm after is just getting rid of any kind of voids, and the other main thing is the seams where the tabbing is on the side of the hull and stuff like that. You don't notice it looking at it necessarily, but if you get down close to the hull and rub your hands on it and stuff like that, there's a lot of undulations. I mean, like right here, all those bright white spots are areas where it's thicker because the hull drops down there between pieces of tabbing and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff doesn't show up until you have a glossy gel coat finish on there. So again, just trying to get rid of as much of it as I can. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect because all of this, all that you see before you, except for the vertical surfaces and maybe this part here, this is all going to get non-skid. The seat bases aren't, basically anywhere you're going to walk is going to get non-skid, obviously. But you're not going to see really anything else, so I just need to get it pretty close. But non-skid really hides a lot of the oopses and waviness, so kind of like matte paint in your house. If you got wavy walls, don't put gloss paint on it. So kind of same thing here. Just wanted to give you an update on what I'm doing and moving forward with wax at this point. So let's see how it goes, and I'll report back. See ya. Back again, guys. A little bit of a sidetrack here. I'm gonna let this fairing compound that I put down set up a little bit longer than I did the last batch, and while I'm waiting on that, I decided to do something that kind of slipped my mind for quite a while, actually. I needed to cut a hole in my floor. Sounds way worse than it is, but I need to put my ski locker hatch back in. So there's the frame for it. The original one, the metal was screwed to the piece of wood and the whole piece of metal lifted out, and I didn't really like that because then you had the bare edges of the plywood exposed. So what I'm going to do differently this time is I'm actually going to screw the metal frame into the deck, so then I can put 5200 around the perimeter of the frame, so that gets totally sealed so the edges of the wood never get wet. I'll still soak the edges of wood in resin and gel coat over it anyway, but just so it's even more sealed, I'll put 5200 around that rim and then screw it in from the side. I think it's going to look cleaner anyway. And then that gives me the option down the road if I want to. The hatch that goes in here is like super heavy. It's almost inch thick plywood, and it's coated in resin and gel coat and fiberglass. I mean, it's not ridiculous, but it probably weighs, I don't know, 25 pounds. So it's not the easiest thing, and there's no hinge, so you actually have to physically take it out of the floor to get access in there. So what that would allow me to do down the road potentially is make a foam cord or different type of hatch cover that is a little more convenient. Maybe I can put hinges on it or something. So I want to get this done now, and then I wish I thought of it before, because I probably wasted all this fairing. Not that it was a lot, but a lot of this fairing didn't even really need to be done since I'm cutting it out anyway. But so basically what I did to find where I'm cutting here is, you can actually see right here, maybe you can, kind of a dark line. Not where the fairing compound is, but here there's a dark line. So if you guys go back to a previous video I did a little while ago, well, quite a while ago, this section of the floor right in front of me was a little bit spongy, and I used 1/2-inch plywood for the deck, and I wasn't really happy with this because there's kind of a big span under here where the gas tank is, and it flexed too much. So what I ended up doing was cutting this piece of the floor out afterwards, and then on the underside I reinforced it with foam strips that I went over with 1700 or 1708 to stiffen it up, and then basically glued it back in. And that definitely fixed that issue. There was another issue up here where the floor was a little soft too, but I never worried about that because I knew I'd be cutting that back out. And the stringers run up both sides here, so it'll be totally fine in the parts that I'm not cutting out. And up there's an additional support that I put in under the floor. So everything else is fine except for this one spot that I'm cutting out, which is why I didn't worry about it. So to find the center line of where this is going, well, again, so I found where this is, and I remember that was at the front edge of the fuel tank compartment. And then I went up a couple of inches just to be sure, and then also the thickness of the bulkhead that would be in there. And then found the center line between the two vertical walls up here. So that's the center line. So it's 20 inches across, came into 10 to find the center line, marked it. And then the frame I'm putting in is 12 inches across. So basically just marked 6 inches each side and drew a square 43 inches long, which is again what the frame is. And then to get the radius, I actually just, what I did is, it's not going to be perfect, but it's not going to matter. I basically just, see if I can show this, probably not. I essentially just lined this up on the front and back and just kind of copied the curve. If it's not perfect, that's okay. Because it has the lip around the side, so it'll cover up minor imperfections. And if it's too tight, I can always come back in and cut it a little bit more with the jigsaw or the grinder or something. So I'm going to set you guys down here and get out the drill a starting hole, and then I'm going to cut this whole thing with the jigsaw, or at least that's the plan. If I remember correctly, has a tendency to go through blades pretty quick with the fiberglass on here, so I got a couple packs of blades back here to change out whenever I need to, so might take a few minutes, but won't be too bad. Whew, I can't win with the freaking noise around here, man. Finally turned the fan off for once and racing at the dirt track down the street, so pardon the noise again. That went pretty well. I'm happy. I only had to fix one spot. Other than that, it dropped like right in, which I was a little bit nervous because the aluminum frame itself is actually split. It's not a continuous piece of metal that's like drawn. I'm assuming it's extruded and then they kind of bend it into shape. But anyway, there's a seam in the middle, so it was hard to kind of make sure everything was kind of square and straight. So actually what I did was I screwed in this piece of wood here at the seam to hold it together while I used it to make measurements and the template and everything. But I'm happy. It dropped right in after I had to trim one little spot down here you saw at the end. And kind of weird seeing the bottom of the hull again. I haven't seen that in a long time, and apparently it hasn't seen the light of day in a long time, so it's kind of gross in there. So, and the reason that is, you probably can't see. Anyway, the front compartment up there in the seat boxes has a drain at the bottom of it, because that's the anchor locker. So wet rope and anchors and stuff like that, I wanted it to drain. So it has a drain that goes through that bulkhead into the ski locker compartment, which then goes through that drain, which goes under the fuel tank compartment. It's not connected, and I think there's a Coast Guard rule about that you can't have a fuel compartment that's enclosed have a drain that goes to the bilge for fire reasons. So that goes underneath the floor of the fuel compartment, which is under here, and then back out down there into the bilge. So everything that is exposed on this boat in terms of places water can get in always has a path to the bilge, which was my kind of thought process the entire time I was putting this back together. So that front ski or anchor locker drains into the ski locker, which drains back to the bilge. The two side seat compartments that's why there's an opening under that bulkhead there. So anything in there, like life jackets and stuff like that, which get wet, any water in that will drain down to the floor and just run back here. And then I have a drain on this side and a drain on this side, which goes through this seat compartment. That's what that glassed in PVC pipe is, back to here, which is the bilge area. So it kind of all comes back here, and then I'll probably just, after I boat every time, come back here and dry up any wet spots. If I were to do it again, maybe I would have put like a angled piece of wood on each side to kind of force the water to the middle into the bilge. But I mean, you know, you can't be too ridiculous with it. You just got to do the best you can. This thing's still going to last 20 years this way, so do what you can and don't spend too much time on it. Like 3 years or 2 years, whatever I'm at now. So yeah, I'm going to take this frame back out. I just wanted to get this done for the time being. Another nice thing now is it gives me a place to stand while I'm gel coating this area. So I can kind of stand in there to gel coat kind of all around, and then I don't know, we'll see when we get there. But at this point, this fairing compound I think is set up enough, and I can start sanding. Oh yeah, that's super hard. One thing I'm trying to figure out is if there's a way to remove the wax before I start sanding. I don't know if that's what it is, but you just can't win, man. Everything you do, it gums up the paper. The PVA, I already went through that. The wax sands better, but it still seems to gum up the paper, and I think it might be the wax that's doing it. Because when you feel the sandpaper, it just like your hand slides right across it, like it's smooth or slippery or something. So I'm thinking that's the wax that's on the surface. I thought maybe I could wipe it with acetone first, but then is that going to kind of like reactivate the resin? Kind of like when you wipe resin with acetone, it gets sticky again. So I'm thinking if I do that, am I going to basically soften the surface of the resin, and then is it going to gum up? I don't know. I guess there's no way around it other than you just go through a load of sandpaper. Back to sanding. Sorry, one real quick thing. God, this freaking race noise. I just wanted to show you something that I noticed when I cut this piece of the floor out, because I think I started making my YouTube videos after the floor was already in. Yeah, I think. Anyway, I wanted to show you what I did to join the floor together. So, if you look at a boat this size, it's pretty obvious, unless you buy some sort of custom-made huge piece of plywood, that you're not going to be able to do the entire deck out of one piece of plywood. 4x8 is a standard sheet. I think you can get 5x10 from hardwood suppliers or lumber yards, but even that's not going to do it. I mean, from the front of the deck back up there to the back of the bilge is probably, I don't know, 16 feet or something like that. Maybe 15. Either way, not happening in a single piece of plywood, at least from anything I could find. So what I did is, to join the seam in the plywood, which this is the underside of the deck, which you can see the CSM I did to seal the underside, but right here is clearly the edge of the plywood. So what I actually did was, since I wasn't planning on, I don't want to spend the effort and waste the plywood to make all the seams land on top of a bulkhead or stringer. You end up with actually more cuts in the deck that way. So what I ended up actually doing is I took my router with a slotting bit and I actually cut a groove into both sides of the plywood, and then on one half I glued in basically a thin piece of wood to act like almost like a tenon. I don't know a better way to explain it. Hold on. Let's make a good drawing board. So this is the plywood. This is the other piece of plywood. So this piece I actually cut a groove in like that, and the other one I did the same thing. It's hard to draw on. And then I cut a piece of wood that shape, so that got glued into here, So what you ended up with was a piece of plywood coming in like this that had a tongue sticking out of it, and the other one would come in like this. And when I put the two pieces of deck together, you'd have a tongue and groove joint, kind of like flooring. And it actually worked really well. Made a really strong floor joint. You can see there's a small gap there. I actually did that on purpose. I wanted to make sure it wasn't too long and the seam couldn't come together the whole way. And before I put the two halves together, I actually looks like this was dry in this spot, but I put peanut butter in that joint, so it's super strong. I bet if I stood on this, it would probably end up, I don't know where it would break, but it's plenty strong. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys what I did on all my floor seams, and I'm pretty happy with it. If I was ever to do a boat again, I think I would do exactly the same thing. The only downside to that is it would have been nice to somehow have access to the underside again to put some 1708 across that seam, but what are you gonna do? Like I said, I walked around this deck everywhere and it's totally strong enough. So yeah, just wanted to show you guys that real quick. Back to your regularly scheduled program. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this episode. Again, thanks for stopping by and checking it out. Hopefully you guys learned something along with me on this one. That polyester resin, no matter how you cure it, whether it's PVA or wax, kind of sucks to sand, to be totally honest with you. You just kind of deal with it. You go through a lot of sandpaper and suck it up. So now that we're done fairing the deck, I need to basically, I'm not totally done. I have a couple of little fillets that I need to finish sanding, but for all intents and purposes, that's done. So once I'm done sanding that, I need to pull this boat out of the garage and just get the garden hose, shop vac, whatever, and just clean it out as good as I can. Get rid of all the dust up underneath the gunnels and seat boxes and all the kind of stuff that you can't really see. When I crawl under the dash and look up, there's just fiberglass dust everywhere. And I want to get rid of that. I'm done with it. I want to get rid of it. So, gotta clean the hull out, rinse it out. Once that's totally dry, I'm just gonna let it sit for a couple of days probably to dry off. Plus, I got a busy weekend, so. And then it's gonna be time to gel coat, guys. Get down the non-skid, gel coat, and it's gonna be honest with you, it's gonna look like it's a finished boat after that. I've seen other guys on the iBoats threads, and as soon as they get the gel coat down, it's like, man, you're almost there. So I'm really looking forward to that. As soon as the gel coat's in, other things are just gonna start kind of flying along. I'll be able to get the steering, whatever it's called, the hydraulic steering, power steering, mounted back to the transom plate. I gotta finish up with the gimbal bearing install, get the motor in, that's a big one, get the outdrive back on after I do the new bellows and all that kind of stuff. So once this gel coat's done, I'm gonna start trying, just kind of cruising through this list and see if I can't still get this grill out this fall. I don't know if it's gonna happen or not. I know it's not gonna be done, but at least maybe seaworthy. So we can get it out, try the motor out, make sure everything's running smoothly. That's where we're at. I think we're gonna end this one here. Thanks again for stopping by and checking it out. And I guess we'll see you on the next one. Bye.